Hey everyone, welcome to Sidetrack Adventures. This is Steve. Right now we're in the Arizona desert, and for over 100 years there have been stories and sightings of camels in the American Southwest, despite camels not being native to North America for thousands of years. But not all stories are tall tales, and sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. So today we're going to be taking a look at the legends of the ghost camels of the Southwest. We are north of Yuma, in what is now the Kofa National Wildlife Refuge, which is the second largest wilderness area in Arizona. When you're looking for something that probably doesn't exist, I guess it really doesn't matter where you look, but camels had reportedly been seen in this area in the early 1900s, so I guess this is as good a place as any. Real quick, I'll get back to the camels in just a moment. But somebody emailed me and they claimed to have seen a camel about 30 years ago near the spot where I'm standing now. Now, obviously, these camels don't really want to be seen. That's why they're seen so infrequently. And that's why we have a trail camera. We're going to put it up and see what we can find. Now, I doubt we're going to find a camel, but maybe we'll get lucky and we'll see a chupacabra or Elvis or something. Okay, so we have the camera up on the tree, and we'll leave it up for about a week or so, and we'll see if anything walks by. We have a pretty good view of this wash. It's actually where two washes meet, so hopefully something comes through here. But anyways, let's get back to the legend of the camels of the Southwest. Camels, at least not modern camels, aren't native to the area. So how did camels end up in Arizona? When Edward Bill was charged with surveying a wagon road from Arkansas to the Pacific coast, roughly along the 35th parallel in 1857, his mission had a second purpose too: testing camels as a means of military transport in the deserts of the American Southwest. In 1855, under the direction of Secretary of War Jefferson Davis, who would later go on to be the President of the Confederacy during the American Civil War, Congress appropriated $30,000 to purchase and import camels for the Army. By 1857, a couple of trips had been made to the Mediterranean and Middle East, and the Army had acquired 75 camels. The camels were first brought to Camp Verde in Texas, where they were used to haul supplies to San Antonio, but in June the herd was split, with about half joining Beale's expedition and heading to California. The camels were known to be stubborn, but over the 5 months and 1,200 miles it took to reach California, they won Bill over with their ability to carry enormous loads, travel great distances, and go for long periods of time without water. The camels proved to be pretty successful, but Congress ignored 3 requests by the Army to purchase more. According to the famed Arizona historian Marshall Trimble, the mule lobby lobbied hard in Washington, D.C. to stop any more from being bought. So I guess back in the 1800s, the mule lobby was a thing. Plus the Civil War was on the horizon. There are some tracks here, but because of the soft sand in this wash, it's kind of hard to tell what they are. They don't look like camel tracks, though. After Texas seceded from the Union during the Civil War, the Confederacy seized Camp Verde. Then after the Civil War, the Army sold off all the Camp Verde camels. The camels in California were auctioned in 1864, and they went to Virginia City, Nevada to haul salt and mining supplies. Eventually those camels would be sold off again in smaller groups to zoos and frontier businessmen. Private businesses were also importing camels at the time, and when those businesses were no longer in need of the camels and couldn't find something like an entertainer or zoo to take them, some were just let loose into the desert. For the next few decades, there would be feral camels sighted throughout the Southwest and into Mexico, and unconfirmed sightings would go on for much longer. The most famous camel of the Arizona desert was called the Red Ghost. In 1882, Mexican placer miners were camped near the San Francisco River. One night, something tore through their camp. They got up and grabbed their guns, but it was gone before they could take aim. They did hear it crashing through the brush, and wild screams unlike anything they've heard before. The next morning, all they found were strange tracks. Two days later, a rancher on the Blue River, about 40 miles from the placer camp, saw a great red beast rush past his place at dusk. He declared it was ridden by something that looked like a man. Those he told the story to thought he had drunk too much mezcal. Others had saw it too, however, and soon it got the name La Fantasmia Colorado, which was translated as the Red Ghost. Eventually, people got close enough to get a look at it and realized it was a camel. Someone took a shot at it, but they missed. As the camel ran off, something fell from it, a leather boot with what was left of a man's leg. It looks like there might be an old mining trail over here. Let's go ahead and head up this way and find out where this leads. This might be a wildlife refuge now, but back in the late 1800s, people were mining all throughout this area. So the Red Ghost kind of terrorized the area for about a decade. He'd be seen from time to time, and even reportedly killed a cowboy that tried to rope him. Parties were organized to hunt the Red Ghost and learn the mystery of his gruesome pack, but they had no luck. It's not hard to imagine camels hiding out in a remote canyon just like this. In December 1890, a man by the name of Happy Jack Humphreys, who had a ranch on Eagle Creek, looked out his window and saw the Red Ghost in his tomato patch. Humphreys grabbed his gun, took aim, and down went the camel among the tomato vines. When Humphreys went out to examine him, he found strips of rawhide wound and twisted all over its back. It was suspected, based on the knots, that Apache had fastened the unknown dead man to the Red Ghost's back. Newspapers of the time speculated the man may have been a sheep herder named Jesus Villegas, who had disappeared in an Apache raid, but it was never determined. The Red Ghost became part of Arizona folklore, and variations of the story have been told for years after. Around the time of its death, though, is about the time the sightings of the camels in these deserts started to become rarer. The lifespan of a camel is only 40 to 50 years, though one of the camels from the Beale expedition reportedly died in 1934, making them nearly 80 at least. So unless there was a breeding population, it's unlikely that there are still any out here, even though people have continued to see them. From the 1870s to the 1890s, there were quite a few sightings, and even in the early 1900s, camel hunts were being organized in Yuma. It looks like we've about reached where they were mining for whatever it was they were mining out here, most likely gold. The Kofa Wildlife Refuge is named after the King of Arizona gold mine. In 1932, there was a miner who claimed that his mule ran off with a camel, and the newspaper at the time was kind enough to mock him with a comic strip. But the sightings became less and less frequent, and none of the sightings have been confirmed since the 1890s. But the sightings have continued. This is where they were prospecting. In 1900, Arizona had a population of about 120,000, while now it's nearly 7.5 million. So it would be certainly harder for wild camels to hide. But then you look out at this land, and while it's extremely unlikely, it doesn't seem impossible. To continue the story of the camels of the Southwest, we're going to head to the camel capital of the Southwest, Quartzsite, Arizona. If you want to see a camel in the Southwest, Quartzsite is probably your best bet. At least a statue of a camel. I'm not sure if there are any living ones around here either. The reason there are so many images of camels all around Quartzsite is right in here. When the army imported the camels, as they had no experience with them, they hired men from the Middle East as camel drivers. One of those men was Haji Ali. Since the Americans had trouble pronouncing his name, he became known as Hi Jolly. Ali was born in Syria in 1828 as Philip Tedro, an Ottoman subject of Syrian and Greek parentage. He was the lead camel driver for the army, and after the camel experiment ended, he stayed in the United States and did odd jobs throughout the Southwest. He became an American citizen in 1880 and rejoined the army in 1885 to work with pack mules during the campaign against Geronimo. Later in life, Ali moved here to Quartzsite, where he mined and did occasional scouting for the government. He was quite famous in his time, and due to his popularity, when he died in 1902, the citizens of Quartzsite spent weeks building this pyramid monument over his grave, and it was dedicated on January 4th, 1903. This vault was added in 1934, and inside it is some memorabilia from his life, and the ashes of the last U.S. Camel Corp camel to die, which was named Topsy. The camel actually outlived Ali by 32 years. And this monument was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2011. Now let's jump forward in time a bit and see what's on that trail cam. Hopefully it's still there. I'm not seeing any tracks or anything, so that's probably not a great sign. Well, I guess it's a great sign that the camera hasn't been stolen because nobody's come by, but it's not a great sign that we've actually captured anything on camera. I was hoping we'd at least get a coyote or something, but we'll pull it down and take a look, and maybe we got lucky. So we just checked the trail cam, and the only thing that it captured the entire time that it was out here was me just a few minutes ago filming it. So no camels have walked by in the last few days, or anything else for that matter. So the trail cam was a complete bust. We know it works because it got me, but nothing else. I thought it'd be pretty fun to put a camera up and see what we can see. I don't really believe there are any camels out here, but I was hoping something would walk by. There is a lot of open space out here though, so there is lots of room for anything living out here to move around. We'd have had to have gotten pretty lucky in the few days this was out here for something to just happen to pass by. We'll have to try and use this trail cam again though, maybe when we go looking for Bigfoot. So that's our look at the ghost camels of the Southwest. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.